Hello, everyone. Excited to be with you today. Looking forward to this episode. This is Victor, your host for the Tee to Green Golf Podcast. What does it take to be a successful golf program? This episode is going to take you on a journey that explores the needs of high caliber, high performing golfers and a very transformative coach. We're excited to welcome back to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast two-time national champion coach, Andy Walker, a former champion as a player in college, a former PGA player, former European Tour player. Pedigree is long, but what's most impressive is how he has transferred that playing ability as a college golfer to being a successful golf coach. And so we're going to spend some time with him just to understand his journey. I'm sure that what he will share with us today applies to you and or your children who are playing, you and or your ascension as a golf coach, whether that be as a coach to your children or as a coach in first tee or what have you. But without further ado, we're going to welcome Coach Andy Walker, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University men's golf coach. Coach, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Hey, how you doing, buddy, man? It's been a while, so I'm excited to get going.
It has. And listen, clearly, I need to make a trip to Richmond. I owe you dinner. It's been a long time since we've sat down and chopped it up. But we'll start here today. How has the season been thus far?
Season's been really good. I'm really happy with how the guys have played. Usually don't get coaches that get to talk about how good things are going. We're always looking for stuff that can be a little bit better, but the boys have played well. They've worked hard. We've changed some things in how we do it, and I'm really proud of the way the guys are playing.
I think that answer in and of itself really sets the table well for what we'll talk about today. And in full transparency, I have a relationship with you. I've known you for about 3 to 5 years right now. I celebrated when you accepted the job at VCU, moving from Florida to Virginia. And so we're going to give the Tee to Green Golf Podcast community a little bit of an insight today on what that journey has been and how you, in many ways, can be viewed as a transformative golf coach. Coach, when I think about my relationship with you and what I've learned, I know that you experienced success very early in life as a player, had a sustained career, and then transitioned to being a coach. When you think about your golf journey, what are 3, 4, or 5 traits that stand out as successful player to coach? When you think about that journey for yourself, what really is on that success board?
I think of a couple of things. One is confidence. You got to have confidence to believe what you do, and as I did that with a player, my team around me, which was, caddy, manager, whatever it had been, at that time, that instructors that I was working with, that confidence kind of transcends into them, and they start to believe, and it changes the mindset. And the same goes with the team as we, as we play, as we practice, when they see that how into and how much belief I have in the system that we're creating, again, they believe that much more. If they ask me a question, I have to be the expert, and I give them an answer, and I tell them, things that I don't think will work. I tell them things I know will work. And they believe that, and they can see it and trust it. And even sometimes it takes a little bit longer for different teams, different players, different recruiting classes that come in to get it. But this group here seems to be getting it pretty quick.
Excellent. When you think about that level of confidence and how you're really transferring that, and I think it's important that what you just said is less about theory and more about practicality and experience, right? And then impressing that upon them. Is there anything else that you think about from a mental standpoint that really stands out and becomes a sustained behavior of success going forward?
I'd say the biggest thing, and I talk about it all the time. I just talked about it on a podcast a couple of days ago, is awareness, right? And we talk about, everyone says, what does that mean? That's such a big, broad word, and it is. And I talk about awareness of everything. You talk about the mental, part of the game that you just mentioned, knowing what you're feeling mentally, and knowing the fears you may have, and the emotional part. I think I kind of work backwards. I don't work with the golf swing first. I work with the mental and emotional attachment to the golf shot at hand, and then it manifests itself in the golf swing that you make.
Right.
So, a perfect example is our mind is so powerful, in that every time you step over a 5-footer that you thought you were going to miss. I mean, we've all stayed over a putt. We just knew we were going to miss a 5-footer. We never make it, right? You never make it. You never luck it in and make it. You always miss it. And then you beat yourself up for having that thought.
Right.
But at the same time, there's been 25, 30 footers that you knew you were going to make. You just stepped over it. It felt right. You could see the line. You knew the speed. Didn't matter what stroke you put on it. It was going to grab the right line and go in. And so our thing is, how do we put ourselves in those positions every time, mentally and emotionally?
Right.
Because everyone's trying to, pre-shot routines. We're big into our routines and knowing what the routines are. I don't think that pre-shot routine should be the same all the time. And a lot of people will differ. But you can't tell me that I'm hitting a 60-yard pitch shot over a bunker to a front right pin. I'm going to have the same routine as if I'm trying to hit a 330-yard drive around the corner.
That is very true.
Right.
Very true.
I think, my thing is really being aware of where we're at in space and time. What's this lie going to do? What's this stance going to do? Where that pin position, the club in my hand, where am I at relative to par? Where am I at relative to the round? The seventh, hole of a golf tournament, wind coming off the right with driver in your hand, you don't have a lot of fear. The 72nd hole with wind coming in off the left and water right out of bounds left, there's some fear. So there's going to be different swings. And so I think, how do we control that emotional connection to that golf shot?
Coach, I appreciate that. As a former basketball player and somebody who's now playing golf, the one thing that I think parallels what you just said is, as a basketball player, we often talked about staying in the moment, and you need to have a short memory.
That's right.
And so I think what you just talked about, we hear less frequent, but more profound when we do, and that's the ability to leave what happened on the last hole at the last hole and be aware that you're on the next hole's tee box, and how are you going to. And so I think the mental aspect of sport, in this case golf, and what you just shared with us, is also something that's transferable in life.
That's
and
right.
There's so much in our ecosystem today that the ability to clear our head and be effective and successful is a skill that we all probably should focus on working. So I appreciate the mental fortitude, the awareness, and the confidence are two things that you're really building in your teams and have. When you think about what you did as a college golfer, and when you think about what you did professionally, very different generations today. Confidence and mental awareness aside, are there any new skills that you've had to learn as a coach to build and transform teams towards success the way that you have?
Yes and no. I obviously, kids are different these days. All right. I mean, we can't say the same thing. I can't say the same things to my team that my coach said to me.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's just right. And I didn't know what HR was before. Right. Like in college, if my coach, told me that I sucked, I had to eat it and go work harder because I didn't want to suck. Now you can't say that, right? If you say that, now I've got a meeting and here comes, it's too much. So I've had to learn a little bit of to bite my tongue.
Right.
But at the same time, I make sure that I recruit players that fit my style and how I'm going to coach. I think that's very important, is knowing and trusting who I am as a coach, and knowing I'm not the coach for everybody. Just
Yeah.
because you can shoot 65 in a tournament doesn't mean that you can shoot 65 in a tournament for me.
Right.
So, so I really make sure that when I'm recruiting players and I'm seeing their environment, I talk to people around them, and
Okay.
and I want to see them play, and I want to see them handle adversity. Right? It's great to
Mm-hmm.
go watch a recruit shoot 64 in a tournament. That's lovely. They have that in the bag. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm recruiting you and I've flown halfway across the world or halfway across the country to come watch you play, I already know you got that in your bag. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see what happens when you three putt from 10 feet, or if you hit one in the hazard, or you get a bad break. That's what I want to see, and then I want to see how you recover from that. But I want to see, do you, is it a thing where you fight through it? Do you throw in the towel? Do you look over to mom and dad for approval? Do you look over to see if they're judging you? All these things are going to happen there. They're going to happen with me as well. And so,
It's a really good answer, and I think it's consistent with what you shared earlier about being aware.
right.
And now we're talking about the next level of emotional intelligence. We're being very balanced. And as athletes, we know that the sport gives us ups and downs. And so I think that's certainly a paperclip moment for the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, whether it's Coach Andy Walker or some other coach that's really looking at your child. Are you developing an ability to handle adversity and stay poised in order to be successful? I do think that that's a competency or skill in sport that, regardless of what generation you come from, has always been something that's been needed. So that's important takeaway there. Coach, you just alluded moments ago to, recruiting.
Mhm.
And when you think about the atmosphere that we're in today, what makes what makes a student golfer attractive to VCU golf today?
Mhm. Obviously, someone who shoots in the red a lot, right? I mean,
Right.
under par rounds. I like players that are well traveled. Uh,
Okay.
we have a really big international, contingent on our team. I think it's 6 internationals and 4 domestic players
Okay.
now. So because I know those players travel around the world playing, and
Mm-hmm.
so getting up and having their games travel means a lot. But there's got to be a level of toughness in there. Pardon my French, but you got to have a little shit in you to
Mm-hmm.
play for
Mm-hmm.
me, right? And so it's going to be a deal of. I always kind of look at things like this. I saw something pretty recently that really sticks with me. I've been thinking about it a lot. Average players want to be left alone. Good players want to be coached.
Absolutely.
Great players want to hear the truth.
Absolutely.
And so if you're someone that comes in and wants to hear the truth, we're probably going to work pretty well together, right? Because I'm going
Absolutely.
to give you the truth. And sometimes it's not pretty. And I've had to hear not pretty truths before, right? But I knew it came from love, and I knew it came from a place where it was going to help me get better. And so, there's the growth mindset and the closed mindset, right? And
Right.
the guys that are closed mindsets, they're probably playing mini tour somewhere. And the guys with the open and growth mindsets, we just watch them at the players,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So it's, it really becomes a balancing act. Just like you said earlier, we're talking, this about golf and coaching in golf because that's what I do as a golf coach. But that's everything in life. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
shot we hit, it's how we handle the shot we hit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The things that happen to us in life, everybody's gotten mad enough where they wanted to hurt or kill somebody, but having the rationality to not do it
Yep.
is why we're, free right now.
That's
And,
exactly right.
and so, it's handling your emotional and mental capacity, to the most. And just like you talked about with the parents that have kids that are getting recruited, it's a skill that can be taught.
Yep.
We just have to be aware that we don't have that skill quite yet.
I think the depth of your answer again talks about prescription for life. And, there was a time when we came through undergrad, and in my case particular, you were playing professionally at that point, but we often talked about the attractiveness of former college athletes because of what they were bringing to the table. They were receptive to feedback, and they were able to take that feedback and build on it and not fold from it. And
Right.
so that's what we're talking about. And you're absolutely right. We're in a different environment today, and you and I probably had coaches that in many respects are carved out of the Bobby Knight way of giving feedback, and when HR wasn't even a consideration. But we do still have an environment where that feedback is needed. It's how do we go about giving that feedback? So again, hopefully the Tee to Green Golf podcast community just received coaches feedback, because it is a taught and a learned and a reinforced behavior, but ultimately it leads to some level of success, especially for athletes. Coach, you had an extremely successful run at Lynn University in Florida. I know that we spent some time together while you were there. We had a number of conversations. And then one day we're on the phone and you are on the cusp of accepting an offer from Virginia Commonwealth University. There's probably the obvious in stepping up a level, but what was the attraction to VCU, especially coming from the foundation at Lynn that you had established? Talk us through that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked that a lot. Yeah, so at Lynn, there was a couple of reasons. I think every step in my career has been pretty calculated,
Mm,
just like a lot of random stuff, going on. If I peel it back a couple layers, in college, I was fortunate enough to win an NCAA championship as a player, right?
Pepperdine University, folks.
Right, in 97. So, and being the first African American to be on a national championship team, that was pretty groundbreaking for my career and what led, beyond, and then went and had a decent professional career, and then started coaching at the junior college level
Okay.
and had some success there. So I won a couple national titles there as a junior college coach.
Okay. Okay.
And then moved on to, it was probably going to be either like a D1 assistant or going to a smaller mid-major level from
Mm-hmm.
there. But I wanted to make sure, I talked to some people that were pretty influential, and they said, all right, Andy, so you killed it at Pepperdine West Coast. You had a junior college there, in Phoenix, that you kind of knew the landscape and how to recruit, and you killed it there. Go somewhere where you don't know anybody, you don't have any of those connections, and let's see what you can do. And that's where I went to the East Coast and went to, over to Boca Raton, and then again had some success, won, national titles again. And so at this point, I'm starting to think about now history, right? There's
Yep.
nobody that's won national titles at the levels I've won as a player, as a coach.
Yep.
So you went on as a D1 player, one junior college as a junior college coach. Then I went as a D2 coach. There's one level to kind of mic drop it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Love
Like
that.
Dre said,
Yes.
rap, you can have it back. That's kind of my, I'm gonna
Love
drop
it.
the mic, right? I'm gonna drop the club on them. So so then it comes to finding the right fit. And I was offered a couple other D1, opportunities beforehand. But in talking to a lot of the athletic directors and a lot of the, athletic staff there, um, winning a national title probably wasn't in their future. And they didn't see it. They just wanted to really contend conference wise or regional wise. And Ed McLaughlin here at VCU, really challenged me. He said, how good can we be here?
Mhm.
And so as we talked, and I started to learn the landscape of VCU and the Richmond golf community, and they've had success in the program before. Matt Ball was a really good coach for a really long time, but really kind of breaking on that national scene. I saw an opportunity here that I could do it
Mhm.
with the resources, with the athletic support here at VCU. I said this is a place where I can come in and contend to win a national title, and so inherited a program, 2.5 years ago, that
Mhm.
was the first ranking. I think we were 187, right? Now, 2 seasons later, yesterday we were ranked 38. right? So it gave me, Ed gives me the opportunity. He allows me to coach and be who I am. He trusts me,
Mm-hmm.
which means a lot. It's easy to go do your job when you know you're not having to look over your shoulder and you have support.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets it. He's a golfer. He's decent golfer. He can probably crack into a high 70s, low 80s. So he
Mm-hmm.
understands the game enough, and he knows the guys on the team. He knows how I recruit. He knows what I do, coaching style, and he lets me do it. And so all of those things kind of led to, from pretty early on, it felt like the right place to be. And so went with the decision, and it was a great decision I've made.
So there's so much to unpack in that answer. And first and foremost, I think we tip our hat to the AD, Ed, and you just acknowledged him. I think what's important there, and would love to um, attempt to speak on Ed's behalf, is he knew that there was a grit and a fire in you that maybe was non-traditional to your average big D1 coach. Don't know that factually, but maybe there's something there. I think the other piece of that, and this doesn't just apply to VCU and Coach Andy Walker, this is really a life leadership takeaway. And that is recognize talent, empower talent, and trust that that talent will get it done. And so he has empowered you to elevate VCU's program from where it was. Um, and then your own intentional way of navigating your decisions and what's next is also a really, really powerful takeaway. I think it's understanding what your vision is, it's understanding where you are in the moment, and it's understanding where you need to go. And again, we all, whether we're playing golf and intending to get better, or we can apply that to just being better in our own professional space right now. I think that's well worth putting a paperclip on that and embracing that all together. Coach, you talked about talent.
Mhm.
And moments ago, we really talked about recruiting. Want to dive into that again. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier is the well-traveled
Mhm.
and your attraction and balance to international players and domestic players. Can you talk about your preference for that and why being well traveled is so important to your success model as a golf coach?
I played around the world.
Yes,
Your
you
game,
have.
your game has to travel. You just see players that, say, I don't like Bermuda greens. I don't like these type, and it's
Yep.
like, you better win everywhere you go. And everyone asks me, what's your favorite golf course? And I say the one I'm playing today. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's being able to adapt and move and really feel comfortable in the environment. A lot of, I say, fortunately, to be successful in this career, whether it was a player or coach, was that I failed so many times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this game, if you want to win a lot, this is not the game for you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you win twice in a 30-year career, you're a stud.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just, how many hole-in-ones have we hit versus how many golf shots we've hit. We hit
Mm-hmm.
millions of golf shots, and
Yep.
and make a couple of hole-in-ones, maybe if you're lucky, which means you fail and miss every time where
Correct.
we're swinging at it. So it's a tough game. And so when you travel and you see a lot of other things, it comes to be a comfort zone. And I know it may be why I didn't have quite the success on the PGA tour or other tours that I wanted to, was I wasn't always comfortable when I first got there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're playing with guys that I know I can beat, that I have beat before, but they're
Mm-hmm.
still that player when you get to the tour. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so I like guys that are really well traveled, but they don't have to be, right? I mean, a good player is a good player.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I get asked all the time about, what are you looking for in a player? I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know when I see it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And
So
and
go
and
ahead,
so
coach.
it becomes, it just becomes sometimes it's the way they carry their bag. Sometimes it's the way they dress. Sometimes it's the things they're doing between golf shots. Sometimes I'm looking to see what they're looking at, how they're
Yeah.
reacting to different shots. Are they a player that says, good shots to guys that are hitting good shots? Are they not? Does it matter? There's so many different things that go on. I'm always kind of digging a couple layers underneath,
I
just
like that.
the surface. I'm not looking at the golf shot you're hitting. A perfect example is I have a freshman on our team that's just a flat out stud. And when I first came here to Richmond, I was out recruiting and watching some players and took a little notice to this kid. He was not one of the top players in Virginia at all. And there was a lot of big time Power Five schools looking at this group for some of the other kids that were playing. And the kid hit a couple golf shots. And I told everyone in there, I said, this kid's going to be the best player in the state. And they looked at me like I was a clown, right? I said, he hit 2 shots today that only 2 people on this golf course can hit, him and me. Now, you
I
guys didn't
see.
even notice. You didn't even notice those shots, right?
Right.
He may have shot 74, 75 today. That's okay. He's 15 years old. He's supposed to, right?
Right.
Just watch. And it wasn't but a couple of months later that this kid started winning everything. And he's played in U.S. juniors and U.S. AMs, and he's won a state AM and he the state junior. I mean, just run the tables. And right now, he's one of the best freshman players in the country.
Nice.
And he's already won a tournament as a freshman and, got
Mm.
like a 69.9 average as a freshman. And the kid's killing it, right?
Hmm.
But it was being able to recognize, I don't know what quite it is in that kid yet, but when he figures out who he is, he's going to be a monster. And fortunately enough, I had a relationship with him. And when all the big time coaches started, coming at him, he said, you remember me from the beginning. You were there.
Absolutely.
And, I reference so much hip hop stuff. What Mike Jones say, you know, back then they didn't want me, but now I'm hot.
And
They
I
all
didn't.
want me, right? And that
Absolutely.
was that was the recruiting tactic with him. And so, it's been successful so far.
Yeah, so I love that, and I think what that goes back to is your confidence. In the work that I do, one of the things that I coach leaders on is making sure that you're paying attention to your direct reports as nonverbals as much as you do their verbals.
Right.
And in this case, the young man's verbal was his ability to hit a golf shot. Maybe his nonverbals was how he was carrying himself and how he was what. And so you were able to create a perfect prototype of an athlete that worked best for VCU Golf. The other thing that you said, Coach, in an answer, and this is really about onboarding, my term professionally, but being comfortable is the word that you used. How do you take a VCU golf prototype student athlete, student golfer, get him on campus in Richmond, and then get him to a point where he's comfortable? And subsequent to that, you go from a program that's ranked 187 to one that's ranked 38th national. How do you bring these kids in and give them a sense of calm and comfort that allows them to do what they do really, really well, and that's play the game of golf?
I don't change who I am, right? I'm going to be real with them from the beginning, and just like I said earlier, I'm going to tell you things that I know work,
Yeah.
and it's going to be different for everybody. Everyone needs to
Right.
be
Right.
taught a little bit different, coached a little different. I trust my ability to help everyone in the world shoot lower scores than they ever have. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing I will confidently say. If I'm around you, I'm going to show you who you are when you're at your best, and you may
Mm-hmm.
not know who that is quite yet, and you may not have hit your best yet. But I know what everyone has in them, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not working miracles. It's not like I'm recruiting someone that shoots 80 and then 2 weeks later we're shooting 68.
Right.
Now, I have taken someone in 4 months that had never broken 100 and we shot in the mid 70s. right? So we've done that when not as a college player, but just as someone I was teaching at the time.
Sure.
But it's being able to recognize that inside of there's a little bit of ability, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
there's certain things that you can do. I'm very realistic, sometimes too much so.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone can do anything. I'm not that person that says if you set your mind to it, you can do anything. I will not play in the NBA next year. No matter
Right.
what I do, I could
Right.
practice with Michael Jordan every day. I can work out, eat the best, put those little boost jump things on my feet. I will not be dunking on LeBron. It's not
Right.
right. So within reason, I can turn anyone in the world into probably one of the best putters in the world,
Correct.
right? Because of the skill set needed to go along with that. So when I see skill sets, my thing is to find out how to make you play to your strengths and how to allow you to accept who you are as a player and really show you what that next level looks like. And then
Yeah.
when you get there, how do we repeat that? Because
Absolutely.
it's hit great golf shots,
Right.
right? Everyone that's played this game has hit a really good golf shot at some point
Right.
in time. Who were you emotionally, mentally, physically to at that moment in time, and how can we get you back there?
Yeah, it's all really good. And again, I hope that for those of you that are in the T Degree and Golf podcast community that have your own children playing the game or maybe know some that are playing, I hope that right now you are writing Coach Andy Walker on a piece of paper and finding a way to get access to him. This is some really good stuff. Clearly, as a coach, he does not subscribe to a one size fits all approach to building up golfers. It is evident that he understands their uniqueness. He invests in who they are as individuals and golfers, and he coaches to that uniqueness. But he has an eye for talent. He has an eye for potential. And through his coaching, it's evident that he does a tremendous job of marrying talent and potential. Again, enter the program. It was ranked 187th. Today, it is ranked 38th nationally. And coach, I'm going to use that to piggyback and go into our next question.
Mm-hmm.
I really do believe that in the raw definition of transformation, that's exactly what you've done. You've talked about it at the junior college level. You did it at Lynn University in Boca Raton. And now you're doing it here, such that the year after you accepted the job and stepped in as coach, 2022, you received A10 Coach of the Year. A10 Coach of the Year. What's next, Coach? What's next on the success board right now?
I try not. I'm not a goal setter.
Okay.
Right. I'm a habit maker, and I think
Mm.
when you're in pressure situations, your habits are going to come out whether you want them to or not. So if you build bad habits, they're coming out whether you want them to or not. Those good habits, right?
Right.
So we're getting ready to leave tomorrow morning for our next tournament. And that's what's next is getting through this next golf tournament. It's going to be a great field. Auburn's in the field. They're ranked either 1 or 2 right now in the country.
Correct.
There's some good teams there. Duke's going to be there. UNC Wilmington's playing really well. There's a lot of really good programs that are going to be down there that, our thing is taking this next step and playing well next week.
Okay.
The guys are confident. They believe in themselves. They're expecting to play well, which is that's hard to teach, but they're expecting, they don't go out hope to play well. They go out knowing the work they put in, they're going to get the results out of that. So, awards wise, if it was about individual awards, so what people don't know is when I got that A10 Coach of the Year, we finished second at A10s, right? And
Yeah.
I took that A10 Coach Award and I threw it, right? Because
Nice.
how am I the Coach of the Year and we finished second?
Right. Right.
Right? We had a decent season leading up to that, and that's what I think the award came from. But for me, it's what's next is to show these guys what it's like to win a national title at the D1 level.
I wouldn't expect anything less. It was kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
Your bar is high.
And so, our thing is we've put ourselves in a good position right now for an at-large, bid to NCAA's, which I don't know if the school has done before or, maybe one other time. But, our thing is to get there and to keep doing what we're doing, because we're getting a little bit better every week right now. And it's,
Good.
we haven't played our best golf yet, but in golf, you rarely ever do.
Right.
If
Right.
you're
You just want to
playing
get better.
kind of B minus golf, you're getting a lot out of your stuff. And so there's going to be days that, hopefully in the near future, we have those A rounds and everybody turns it on and you shoot, 15, 20, 22, 23 under and around. But, as long as we keep doing what we're doing, we're a young team. So it's sometimes it's hard to not look too far into the future and get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
And on our traveling squad right now, we've got, two freshmen, two sophomores, and a junior. We're not losing anybody for next year. So the future's bright. Got some really good
Absolutely.
recruits coming in next year, 2025. I'm working on some monsters right now. So, we're really trying to we're not rebuilding anymore. We're going to be reloading.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and
Sounds
so,
like the 38th nationally is not the ceiling. It is not the standard. And it looks like we're getting very, very close. Coach, just, one question left. When you think about the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, how can we support you and VCU Golf going forward?
oh, wow, that's a great question. First, I appreciate wanting to support. That's big. Tell you what is, obviously the higher you go at any level, financial resources need to be more. Our schedule's getting better. We're getting into bigger and better tournaments. We just got a really big invite 2 days ago to a tournament next year that wasn't possible last year to get into. And so people that can support financially when we're on the road, come out and watch the guys. We don't get really huge crowds a lot playing
Right.
college golf, coming out and and hanging out, breaking bread with the team when we're in your city.
Right.
Just coming and saying that you're a friend of the podcast.
Yep.
Right. And the relationship that me and you have, that will transcend, and spending time with them, because you can tell I can talk about this game quite a bit.
Yes.
So when fans come up and they want to talk golf or whatever, it's something I love to do. This game is, it's been my life since I was, 3, 4,
Correct.
5 years old. So, this is my way to give back. But, more than anything, it's just, in whatever capacity, if it's monetarily, if it's emotional, if it's just showing up, if it's commenting, whether it's social media stuff, we're really trying to build a really big fan base and rally around not what I'm doing. I'm not hitting any golf shot, right? It's what the kids are doing and the work that they're putting in. And sometimes they don't know that in the background there's people supporting them. And so for them to know, that's huge.
So to the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, my ask is that you follow VCU Golf. They do have an Instagram site. You can go on VCU Athletics and follow the golf team and understand where they're playing. Today, we want to give tremendous thanks to Coach Andy Walker, particularly as this is the day before he and his team travel to their very next tournament. A friend, a fellow golfer, a successful coach. Coach, I appreciate your time as I always do. To the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, as we always say, hit it straight from Tee to Green. We are out.